Hello, NAAIA community. Get ready to relive insightful discussions, gain fresh perspectives, and be inspired by the wealth of knowledge our community has to offer. Let's dive into another episode.
Welcome. Thank you for joining us today for NAAIA's National Advancing Inclusion webinar, Command the Room, Elevating Your Confidence, Communication, and Career. And it's wonderful to see our community gathered together for this conversation. As we celebrate Women's History Month, we're also building momentum toward an important milestone for NAAIA, our 30th anniversary. And as part of that celebration, we'll be highlighting the stories, the leadership, and the lasting contributions of the Black women who have shaped NAAIA since its founding. Their impact has helped strengthen both our organization and the broader insurance industry, and today's conversation just continues that legacy. At NAAIA, we know that professional growth is about more than technical expertise. It's also about how we show up, how we communicate, how we lead, and how we bring authenticity and confidence into the spaces where decisions are made. So sessions like this one are designed to help professionals strengthen those capabilities and lead with greater presence, clarity, and purpose. Today's discussion is going to focus on practical ways to build confidence and strengthen executive presence and communicate with authority. So whether you're preparing for your next promotion, and I hope you are, or leading a team, speaking up in high-stakes meetings, our panelists are going to share strategies that can help you show up boldly and authentically in every professional setting. We'll also talk about topics that many of us navigate throughout our careers, including imposter syndrome. I know I've dealt with that many times in my career, delivering feedback effectively and advocating for ourselves with confidence. Because commanding the room isn't about being the loudest voice. It's about being the most intentional and impactful one. So before we dive in, I just want to make sure we're making that session interactive. Ashley already kind of mentioned this, but please, if you haven't already, take a moment to continue dropping in the chat where you're joining us from. It's always great to see the reach of the community across the country. And as we move through the conversation, please share your takeaways in the chat. And if you have questions for our panelists, of course, submit them through that Q&A box. We have an incredible panel of leaders joining us today, individuals who truly embody the confidence, communication, and authenticity that we're here to discuss. So get ready to take notes. I know I am. Be inspired, and most importantly, own your power. At the end of the session, you'll receive a brief post-webinar survey. So please, I encourage you to take a few moments to complete it because your feedback always helps us continue delivering meaningful and impactful programming for all of you. And one of the things, I've learned in my own career, that confidence and presence are not traits you either have or you don't have. Right? They're skills that can be developed with practice and intention and the courage to keep showing up. So conversations like the one we're about to have will help all of us continue that growth together. And now it is my pleasure to introduce our wonderful moderator, Sonya Daies, who is the Director of Talent Acquisition with Allianz Commercial, who will guide us through today's conversation. Sonya, over to you.
Thank you, Liz. Thank you so much. And good afternoon to all. Thank you all for joining us today for what we hope will be an insightful conversation discussion. And our topic, of course, is Command the Room, elevating your confidence, communication, and career. We'll be joined today by a few of our phenomenal NAAIA women. We have Ann Turner, Assistant Vice President of Underwriting Operations at Colonial Life. We have Patience Noah, Licensed Risk Manager and the owner of Patience Noah Agency. And we have Tawana Scott, Vice President of Commercial Lines Product Management at Mutual Benefit Group. I'm super excited today to dive into our discussion. And now that you've met our panelists, let's officially get started. And to start us off today, can you share a little bit about your leadership journey and what does commanding the room mean to you personally? And Ann, can we start with you today? Can you get us going?
Sure, of course. And good afternoon to everyone. And I absolutely love starting with this question, because I really want everyone to know before you enter the room, you should start working on commanding the room. So for me, I always look at a few key things, but it's the preparation that goes into knowing what I want to accomplish when I'm entering the room. It's making sure that I have clarity and that I have focus on what I'm expecting and what I want to achieve. So I think when you look at your career and everything that you're going on, these simple things can apply throughout. Preparation is key so that you're able to speak confidently, you're able to communicate clearly, you're able to be in the room with focus and be very intentional. To me, commanding the room is more about the work you do outside the room, but it is also, again, with the emphasis of preparation, but also helping others as well. Like, I never want to walk into the room commanding a room without knowing that I haven't prepped for the room, but I'm also helping others along that journey as well.
Right. Thank you, Anne. And how about you, Patience? Can you share a little bit about your journey and what it means to you to command the room?
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. So for me, for as long as I can remember, I've always been a leader. At the time when I was younger, I didn't know what it meant. But I always saw myself either in charge of something or when I'm in a group, I ended up probably having to take leadership role in the group, in school projects and things of that nature. When I transitioned to the corporate world, what it looked more like was always asking questions or always being chosen to lead a project or something around that. Now that I'm an entrepreneur and agency owner, what it means now obviously means leading my team, leading the community and things of that nature, and being that example within my community. Commanding a room for me personally, command for me is more of observing than being the loudest in the room. So when I get in the room, now I'm not trying to make myself small, but however, I do want to observe the room, observe what's going on, then I identify what are the things that needs to be changed and what are the skill set that I have that I can use to make change or bring change to that environment. So for me, that's how I look at commanding the room.
Right. Thank you, Patience. And how about you, Tawana? What is commanding the room? And tell us a little bit about your leadership journey.
Hi, Sonya, and thank you. So for me, commanding the room is really about me being me, right? Being present, being engaging, listening to hear, responding with clarity, and just being fun, right? I step into a room, I'm reading the room, I'm looking at people, I'm listening to what people say. I am being intentional about how I respond. I think, knowing the people who are going to be in the room and thinking about what you want people to see in you will help you know and understand how to command a room. It's about you being you. You never want to shrink yourself. You never want to not be who you are. You are who you are, and commanding the room is that's how you command the room, is being who you are all the time, no matter whether it's work, whether it's personal, church, whatever. You being who you are, you'll never have to worry about what to say next because you'll know.
Well, thank you. Each one of you touched a little bit on confidence, as you shared your journey. Confidence looks different to everyone. What are some strategies or daily habits that have helped you strengthen your confidence over the time? And Patience, why don't we start with you this time, if you don't mind?
Yeah, so confidence is something that I've always had to work on or that I'm still working on. For me, being an immigrant, I'm originally from Liberia, coming into the United States and starting off in middle school. A lot of kids made fun of my accent and things of that nature. So as I got older, being confident and owning the fact that my accent is probably what's unique about me because it could spark a conversation was really what I had to get used to. And once I got used to that, now I could enter a room and say, okay, you know what? At the end of the day, I have an accent. So what? Right? So I had to accept that part of me and accept that that is the part of me that makes me unique. So now when I enter a room, I enter the room as, okay, I am Patience. I'm a Black female, XYZ. These are all the things that makes who I am, and not be shy of that or not own that aspect of me or try to hide that aspect of me. So for me, that's what my confidence is rooted in, more than anything else.
All righty. Thank you. Thank you, Patience. How about you, Tawana?
So as a type A personality on steroids, right? confidence for me can go to arrogance just like that, right? 0 to 100. And so for me, my faith keeps me grounded and it helps me to practice servant leadership principles. I was born confident. My mom says that all the time. I came out the womb knowing who I am, being that life of the party and center of attention. But for me, especially as a leader, I have to be mindful that that confidence doesn't go into arrogance and conceit, right?
Okay, that definitely makes sense.
Mhm.
And I think Tawana might be frozen. So Anne, why don't we move over to you and talk to us a little bit about confidence and how you build it, and please.
Okay, so for me, confidence is kind of the same thing with commanding the room, right? It starts on the work that you do before you get to the room or before you get to the situation. I also think about confidence too as like a self-affirmation. Like, I know that I've done the work. I know that I belong here. I know that I have a voice. I know that I have something valuable. I know that I can make an impact. All of those things tie into me for like fueling my confidence when I'm walking into a situation. But it begins with, again, preparation and knowing really what you're coming in there to say. So having clarity in your messaging. And when I think about confidence, it's not something you tackle and it's once and done. You're constantly working on that. You're constantly developing that. You're constantly tweaking that. So I think, again, to go back to the importance of figure out who you are outside of the room. Develop your leadership styles before you get to that situation. So then when you walk into a room or you walk into a place, like you're already confident in the messaging, what you want to come across with, you're confident in your ability to execute, and you know that you belong there.
Okay. Perfect. Once again, I want to thank you all for sharing a little bit of your blueprints for building your confidence. If we were to elaborate a little bit, can you actually share how body language, tone, and word choice influence others' perspectives of your confidence and credibility? And Tawana, I was going to say, I think we lost Tawana again. So Anne, I'm going to actually put you back on the stage and ask if you can get us started here.
Okay. Don't mind at all. So I'm a little old school in my thought on this, but I think even before I think about body language, I think about how you dress and show up, right? So that old adage, if you feel good, you look good, or if you look good, you feel good. I got it reversed, right? But I do believe that you have to walk into a room just knowing that you are already at your best. Then I think definitely body language, word choice, tone. But all of that, if you are prepared when you walk into the room, if you are doing your research, and I think a lot of us, I would say early in my career, because I'm not necessarily shy about speaking or stepping up to present something, but early in my career, I would feel more so like, hey, I might not prepare as much, but I felt like I could rise to the occasion, right? But if you think about your career and you think about growing as a leader, it's like, I don't want to take that chance. I want to do everything I can to prepare. So when I show up in the room, body language, everything, you know that I belong. And it's not about arrogance. I know Tawana touched on that. It really is about me personally owning that space and know that I belong in that space.
Thank you. Thank you, Anne. And we have Tawana back. So Tawana, body language, tone, and word choice, how do they influence our perception and confidence?
They heavily influence. All right. Especially women of color, right? It's the elephant in the room, right? We have that resting bee face, right? We just do, right? That's who we are, right? And I can just remember early in my career, people would say, "Oh, you never smile. You have dimples. You never smile." And I think, but if I'm just walking around smiling all the time, y'all are gonna think I'm crazy, right? So it heavily influences us. We always have to be mindful of how we are presenting ourselves, how we want to be seen, right? Perception's reality, even though it isn't, right? How someone sees you, right? I'm having a bad day, right? Or, I've got some emotional issues happening at home and I just finished a tearful cry, right? That nobody knows about. And right then and there, somebody comes into me and they think, yeah, there she goes, right? So you always have to be mindful of it. And it's not just women of color and it's us, it's people in general. How do you want to be perceived? That's what you always have to be thinking about. What do you want yourself to look like to others and projecting that? So I love what Ann said about, you know, starting with what you wear, right? You look good, you feel good, right? Period, right? And so for me, I think I especially have to be mindful of tones and what I'm wearing and what I say, and then doing all that and being true to me, right? You always want to be who you are, and that doesn't go away, right? And it's just striking that balance and finding that balance, especially in our business, which is heavily dominated by white men, if I can be so frank, right? So we always want to be mindful of what we say, how we say it, part in part because it's also the right thing to do, right? I don't want somebody thinking I'm a angry woman or I'm mean and nasty. That's not who I am, so I don't want to project that, right? So you want people to see who you are by your actions, right? And what you do and what you say. And so for me, that's what I focus on, right? I just again go back to those servant leadership principles. That's what you do. And people will see you for who you are.
Absolutely. And then patients are going to put this to you. And your situation is a little bit different because you're an owner,
Yeah.
an agency owner. So when you were talking body language, tone, and word choice, talk to us a little bit about your perspective as an agency owner.
Yeah, so one of the things that I would say on this line, people still don't struggle with taking instructions from men as they do struggle with taking instructions from women.
Mm.
One of the things that I really struggle with in the beginning of my agency, once I started to hire people, is the fact that when I give orders or when I give instructions, I still have people telling me, "Oh, well, you were a little too harsh in the way that you said it," right? So I really struggle with that. So I'm like, okay, how can I sound authoritative without coming across rude, right? And I really struggled with that in the beginning. And a lot of my staff members, even if I was using natural tone like this, they tend to cry. I'm like, listen, I'm not your mother. At the end of the day, I have something for us to do, and I need you to do it this way, right? But obviously, I had to take a step back and actually look at the way that I was saying it. Okay, is it the way that I'm saying it? Is it my tone? Is it my body language? So I really had to sit down with myself and ask myself this question. And I'm like, actually, you know what? There are some things that I do need to be authoritative on because at the end of the day, if a male were to deliver the same message
Mhm.
in this same tone, someone would
Yep.
say, "Oh, yes, boss. Okay, boss. Oh, he's such a great leader." Or this person is a very strong leader. But I find myself being on my team, people crying when I give the same orders. So I had to talk to my team and be like, listen, there are times I'm going to be soft, but then there are times I'm going to be very direct and I'm going to be difficult on you guys because we need to do certain things a certain way when I say this, right? So it's really something that I had to work with. And it's something that I still feel like society struggles with. And again, that stereotype of us being Black women and now being in leadership is something that the world is still not used to. So when we give instructions, it comes across as, oh, we're being mean, we're being the bitch, we're being this, we're singling people out. No, at the end of the day, if someone else gave these same instructions, you will follow it. So why is it when I give it, it's looked at as something else? So
Mhm.
as much as we want to watch our tones, as much as we want to watch our body languages, at the end of the day, we are in a place of authority, and people need to start seeing us as that versus us having to tone ourselves down to deliver the message. Right. So that's how I look at it from a leadership agency owner perspective.
All righty. So three different perspectives and three different messages, and all very interesting. Thank you, ladies, for that.
Yeah.
Our next topic is imposter syndrome. I think this is one that we've all been kind of excited to dive into. And it's something many Black professionals navigate often in spaces where we're unrepresented. How have you personally dealt with imposter syndrome, and what helped you move through it rather than around it? And Anne, I'm going to come back to you, and let's start with you.
Okay, the first thing that I would say about it is I think we need to recognize, especially as Black women and minorities, is that we don't have to conform to whatever we think the type is. So, because I think we play into that imposter syndrome, because the further you move up in leadership, you tend to be the only person, the only representation, the only Black female, and then you're automatically in your head thinking that you have to conform to a certain type or speak a certain way that they're expecting you to speak. And so for me, I always go back to trying to prove, like, I have a network outside of my job, right? So I have mentors, community, and I've established myself as a leader and defined who I wanted to be outside of this role. I love when Tawana said showing up as a servant leader, because I know that's me and that's within my characteristics. But I think for imposter syndrome is like recognizing that you don't have to conform. Also, being clear in the type of leader and how you want to show up. And then when you feel imposter syndrome, because we all feel it, I had a meeting this morning and I felt imposter syndrome, you need to recognize it in that moment. This will be something that you never walk away from. You need to recognize it, kind of do a self-check, right? Do a little self-affirmation and get yourself back focused. And then realize, like with clarity, why you're here, the value you bring, and the impact that you make to overcome that feeling.
All righty. Thank you. Patience?
Yeah, so imposter syndrome was something that I looked at for the longest as an enemy, right?
Mhm.
And I would say for the last 2 years, I've started to look at it from a different perspective. I've started to embrace it. I use it as something to keep me grounded versus something that is working against me. One of the things that I do need us to think about when it comes to imposter syndrome is that for those, like Tawana said, for those who have that type A personality and things of that nature, use it to ask yourself, why do I feel the way that I feel when I'm going into this room? Is it because I'm not prepared? Is it because I feel like I don't belong here? Is it because of X, Y, and Z? And ask yourself those questions if those feelings, because it is a feeling, it doesn't mean it's true, right? Imposter syndrome is a feeling, an overwhelming feeling that comes over you. You can be prepared, you can have all the answers, and sometimes you're just feeling those feelings. So I've started to ask myself when those feelings arise when I'm in a room of agency owners that are older, that are majority male, that are that are 10, 15, 20 years older than me, and I start to feel those feelings, I ask myself, why are you feeling this way? Is it because you feel like you don't belong here? Is it because you did not prepare enough? Is it because you feel like this is not somewhere that you should be? Are you worried about back home that things are not? So it could be a whole bunch of things. So for me, I've started to look at it as there's a saying that says faith does not exist without fear, right? So for me, I look at imposter syndrome as something that it is a part of me. I don't want to get rid of it because, like I said, it keeps me grounded. But instead of trying to get rid of that feeling, I try to lean more into it and ask myself, why am I feeling like this? And if I'm back in that room, sometimes I don't feel like that because I've addressed those questions or that feeling, right? And I do show up differently.
All righty. Thank you. And Tawana?
So I'm going to take a different approach to this one, right? As that, highly confident person, that type A personality, right? I can honestly say I've not ever suffered from imposter syndrome, right? I never think I'm not supposed to be in the room. Okay. But that's just me and everybody can't be me. But I have been the only one in the room, but I have been in this industry for a very long time and I know what I know, right? And I've gotten kudos and recognitions. So I have a confidence level that when I do go into the room, I do know what I'm talking about, right? That said, I would never diminish someone who does feel that, right? That feeling is real. So for me, what I would say to someone and to those who suffer from it from time to time, first thing, acknowledge it. Patience was 100% right. You've got to acknowledge the feeling, right? But don't let it control you, right? Be confident in you and yourself. And like Patience said, be prepared. Now, if you're going to go into the room and you're not prepared, you're going to have some issues, right? But the other thing is separate that feeling from facts, right? you're prepared. You know what you're doing. You were invited into the room because they know that you know what you're talking about. When I think about the three of us on this panel right here, we were invited to be on the panel because they know that we know we're going to say good things. We're going to give you guys good advice, right? They asked Sonya to moderate this because they know she's going to ask the tough questions that's going to provoke conversations and dialogues, right? So we belong in the room. We all belong in the room. It's what do we do when we get into the room, right? That's the important piece. So don't let imposter syndrome take over you and your life because you belong there. I'm here to tell you, if you're in this industry and you want to learn, learn. You want to get a mentor, be a mentor, call me, I'll be your mentor. I'm happy to do it, right? But find someone in this business that you can rely on and somebody that's going to keep it real with you, right? That's the important thing, that you don't want a mentor that's going to yes you to death. You don't want to be a mentor that's going to yes someone to death. Sometimes it is you and not them, right? But be prepared when you walk into that room. Acknowledge your feelings, but don't let it control you, and separate the feelings from fact. That's how you get around imposter syndrome, in my opinion.
I think that's great. I'd actually like to just share something because sometimes I think it's not always in areas where we're unrepresented. Sometimes I think it's in areas where we're represented also. And just from a personal standpoint for me, NAAIA is an industry organization for us, by us. Most NAAIA members are part of the business, but I'm part of HR, so I'm not part of the business. I'm always told that I don't have a cost center, so I'm not bringing money in. So I still kind of sit outside of that. So when I got affiliated with NAAIA, I started to question myself. I'm part of HR, I'm not part of the business. Do I really belong here? Do I have something to share? And I pushed past and those feelings of inadequacy, and I told myself I do. I really felt like I did. So what I decided to do with that is I got more involved with NAAIA. I actually started joining myself and inviting myself, not inviting myself, but actually helping out on a national level, now on a local level. NAAIA has supported me and has welcomed me with open arms. And that's allowed me to really push past that and to really be excited about what more I can do for NAAIA. So like you said, we are here today. I've acknowledged where I felt I was not adequate, but I found a path to make sure that I am. I found a path to make sure that I educate myself about what goes on in the industry and NAAIA. And I enjoy representing us as a people. So what I decided to do is to move forward and be the best I can be. So as Ann always shared, I prepare myself before I step into situations, especially when they involve us, because last thing I want to do is disappoint. I made a comment just earlier today that it almost feels like I'm with my parents. You never want to disappoint your parents. So when I show up for NAAIA, I show up thinking just that. I don't want to disappoint. I want to be as impressed with you as I am with the people that I've met within NAIA. But no, I push past. Tell yourself that you are worthy and find a way to make it happen. I think that's exactly what we do. So no, thank you, ladies. Thank you.
Thank you.
So you are all leaders and or business owners within the industry, and you have all had the opportunity to successfully grow your careers. And now you either own a seat or you have a seat at the table within your organizations. Based on your experience, how do you identify when to speak up versus when to listen and observe, especially in leadership conversations? And Patience, why don't we start with you this time?
Yeah, in the beginning, I really struggled with this, but obviously, experience is the best teacher, and also, age is the best teacher as you go along, if you're paying attention, of course. If you're paying attention. But one of the things that I've really gotten accustomed to is before I go into a meeting, before I go in the room, is ask questions like, who's going to be there, right? Because I want to know who my audience are. Like, am I speaking to those who are younger than me? Am I speaking to business leaders? If I'm in the room with business leaders, I do want to be a little bit more observant, and I do want to be a little bit more quiet and pay attention to what they're saying, right? And I also go as far as learning, okay, what's their experience? If it's somebody, if these are business owners that are within the same age gap, experience gap as me, obviously my contribution to the conversation will be a little bit more different than those who've been in the business for 10, 15, 20 years, right? When I'm in those rooms, I do want to sit down. I do want to listen to how they've been doing it for X amount of time for them to have last that long, right? So right now, what I do is really figure out what my audience are, right? So that I know how to show up in that room, because I'm showing up in that room knowing that, okay, maybe I may need to talk a little bit more in this group than, the other group, right? So that's really what I've been trying to pay attention to, because sometimes we do have this thing of going into a room and not knowing who our audiences are and showing up not the wrong way per se, but sometimes maybe we're talking a little bit too much than we are to listen, right? So really knowing the room that you're walking into helps a little bit for me, at least for me, in deciding on how I show up and how I observe, or how I say too much or too little in that room.
I think this is going to be an interesting one coming from Tawana. So,
I think for me, it is a balance, right? Because I'd say, I don't know, 99.9% of the time, I always have an opinion on something, right? But I don't always have to give my opinion. I don't always have to be the center of attention, right? So I stop and think about, I read the room, right? Unless it's a meeting or a conference or something that is mine, where I have to start, I'm listening. Right. And you might think it's funny that someone like me actually doesn't talk, but listen, but I do. I listen and I read the room. I'm watching people and I'm listening and I'm understanding. And then I'm thinking, is what I'm about to say relevant to the conversation?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Will it add value? Will it take away from whomever has spoken and said what they said? And then for me, it's going to glorify God. Right? So am I being mean? Am I being petty? Am I speaking the truth? Right?
Mm-hmm.
And speaking the truth isn't always good, right? Let's speak it in love, right? Even in business, we can speak the truth in love and not get feelings in. So for me, it's about reading the room, understanding it, and then thinking about what I'm going to say. Is it relevant and going to add value? And you know what? Are the people who are going to hear it, how are they going to perceive it? Right? Because we've been talking about perception and influences and things like that, right? So is what I'm going to say relevant and will have me looking in a good light? And if it's not going to have me looking in a good light, is what I'm saying going to convict people? Right? Am I going to say something that's going to get down to the nitty gritty where you don't want to hear it because it's the right thing to say, right? Even in our business, right? Sometimes I have to tell, CEO, yeah, well, we didn't write that because it's not a good risk. Not the words I said, but I'm saying those words here, right? It was not a good risk and we didn't write it, right? When the agent's breathing down our necks. So perception and relevance and reading the room. That is a skill that if you don't have, you have to learn to read the room, think about what people are saying, look at their body language. And that's how you know what to say. Even if you have a list of notes, a page, a whole book of notes, right? Your whole book of notes can go right out the window if you are reading the room and people are saying things that your notes are not relevant, and you got to speak off the top of your head. So is it relevant and will it add value?
thank you. Thank you, Tawana. How about you, Anne?
Wow, they all covered some really good points. So, and a lot of things that I would reinforce. I feel like reading the room is my superpower. I really, really lean into that, and I feel like listening is just as powerful as speaking. So, understanding the room, the dynamics of the people in the room, but I always want to take it like before you get to the room. So, preparation, I think just being curious. So, before you even go into the meeting and you think about whether you're going to speak, ask a question, or listen, several of us will get these meeting invites that have very little information, right? You're not sure what you're discussing, this, that, and the other. Reach out to the person who set up the meeting and ask them what their agenda is, what their goal and what their focus is for the meeting, and put that to the side, right? That's something for you to make sure, okay, you have an understanding of what their goal is for the meeting. Then for you need to have an understanding of what your goal is for the meeting. Once you figure out what they want to discuss, points they want to make, then for you need to list out like, hey, what do I want to get from this meeting? You might just want to get better understanding. So you might not have that much to say, or you might have things that you want to say. So I'll go back to preparation, having clarity of what you expect out of the meeting, having clarity on the questions that you have. Be curious when you get that meeting invite, ask as many questions as you can before you step into that meeting. And then you can determine whether or not you need to speak, ask questions, or listen. But reading the room is so, so important. So if you have not mastered that skill, that is something that every single person really needs to have in their back pocket.
Absolutely. And you were a woman of preparation. I was going to say, I see that you prepare at all ends, and I appreciate that about you, truly do. We're going to move forward, and we're going to talk a little bit on a different topic. I work in HR and specifically in recruiting, and I can confirm that one of the toughest things for people to do is to advocate for themselves. You know, whether it's a candidate that I'm talking to, whether it's an employee, it's always a very awkward space. Self-advocacy can feel uncomfortable, whether you're negotiating a promotion, pricing your services, or making the case for value, in your professional setting. What mindset shifts or strategies have helped you to ask for what you deserve without second guessing yourself? And Tawana, let's start with you here.
Well, I will tell you, as confident as I am, this is an area I struggle in, right? And I will tell you, my confidence is sometimes on steroids, where I've broken my arms many a times. But I struggle with advocating for myself. I can advocate for others, hands down, right? But when I advocate for myself, I feel like I'm being arrogant and conceited, and your ego gets in it and pride gets in there. And then you have all these big feelings. And so then you don't do it because you don't want the people to see you that way, right? And so I think the best way and the mind shift, what has helped me is keeping it real. I deal in facts. I deal in figures. I bring receipts. This is what I've done. This is how I've done it. This is the outcome, the results. And this is what I feel I am worth, right? I deal with that terminology. I am worthy, right? I come in, I work hard. I've done these things. I go above and beyond, and I do these things. But when you are faced with advocating for yourself, you have to have the documentation of the why, right? Nothing beats facts and figures, right? And even if you can't get that raise or that promotion, right? You'll walk away feeling good. You'll walk away knowing that you spoke up for yourself, right? You showed them, and now you know your worth. And at this point, it may mean looking for a new job, going someplace else that's going to deserve you, right? But that's the way to do it.
Okay, I agree. Reminding them who you are and why you are where you are.
Every day.
Absolutely. How about you, Anne?
So for me, and I think probably everyone goes through iterations of themselves as you're trying to build your career, right? So I know when I started off, I felt like, oh, if I work really hard, someone will notice. Like I'll get that next job or that next promotion. But I had to shift my mindset. I had to really stop thinking about like, hey, I'm asking someone for a favor versus asking someone to really look at me for something I've earned, I deserve. And I think like Tawana brought up a point where know what value you bring. A lot of us, when we are talking, we talk about the task and the things that we've accomplished. So it's almost like a checklist, but we're not wrapping that into a holistic sentence of talking about the value we've made, the impact we've made. We're like, oh yeah, we met this goal and we met that goal, but you really need to understand what value you bring, and you need to be able to articulate that value. And also kind of later in my career, I just started just in my mind, I was like, I just need to start asking for what I want and putting it out there. So like leadership knows like I desire X, Y, and Z. And it wasn't necessarily about a job title, but it was really about, hey, I want to expand my scope. I want to learn this. I want to continue to grow. I want to continue to contribute to the business. But for me, it started with me. I needed to have clarity on what I wanted, on where I wanted to go. I needed to put a value to the task that I was completing and communicate that piece. And then I'll go back, and y'all probably get tired of me saying preparation, but preparing all of that stuff gave me confidence to really ask for what I want. And I can remember applying for a job, and I was like, hey, if I don't get this job, I gave it my all. I already started thinking about what am I going after next, because I didn't want that to be a deterrence from me moving to the next level or next career move. And I even told my boss at that time, I was like, hey, I'm already game planning this out. So I think you got to be really, really clear on what you want. And then you just find your voice and start to speak for yourself. Because if you don't find your voice, no one else will speak for you the way that you will speak for yourself. And so many times we wait. We're extremely loyal in these jobs. We're extremely dedicated in these jobs. But a lot of times we're waiting for someone to notice us, and that does not always happen. You have to be able to clearly communicate what you want for yourself and for your career.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you, Anne. How about you, Patience?
Yeah, so I mean, listen, y'all, being an agency owner the last 5 years has not been easy. With me starting right before the pandemic, and obviously, now I'm in my year 5, going on year 6 now. It really hasn't been easy, and I really had to be my own advocate when it comes to career appointment. I mean, you hear the stereotype out there, oh, Black agency owners don't get given appointments. We don't get given appointments. I mean, like it's it's not a fallacy. It's not, people crying wolf or anything like that. It is a reality. And until you're experiencing it, you just don't know the gravity or, the level of it. And coming into the agency after I left corporate, I mean, I thought because I had the experience, carriers will open their arms to me, and that wasn't the case. So when I find myself sitting in front of them, I had to lead with my capabilities versus the fact that I'm a woman or versus the fact that I'm Black, because there are some people who specifically I've had appointments denied. I had an incident where I had an agency, a company that their marketing rep, I had met the CEO at an event that I went to, and he said, okay, I'll assign you to someone to come and see you. And the lady came to my agency and she turned around, and I called, I emailed, I texted, nothing. She did not respond to me until the following year. I went back to the event and I saw the CEO. I said, hey, what happened with your girl? And he said that, she said she turned around because when she got to your office, there were a lot of ambulance outside. And I said, what does that have to do with my ability as a producer or as an agency owner? I don't understand. And he was like, yeah, I told her that wasn't a valid answer. I said, well, obviously she hasn't been back to my office. I haven't heard from her. So maybe I don't know what conversation you had with her, right? But he was like, oh, okay, I'm gonna have her come back. I said, no, she doesn't need to, I don't need her to come back out to the agency. But I do need you guys to understand that what she did was wrong. And I should not be judged because she came outside and she saw ambulance outside. She could have called me and at least told me that this is what was going on. But she disrespected me and she did not let me know what was going on. So I always use that story as, for me, advocating for myself meant letting that CEO know, no, I don't need you guys back in my agency any longer, right? So I've gotten to the point that now I'm not begging people to give me appointments. I'm letting them know, although I'm in the beginning stages, if you don't give me the opportunity when I get to that stage, you will be the one knocking on my door. And I will have criteria of deciding to accept you into my doors or not, just like you're doing with me. So I had to get bold and start telling marketing reps and and insurance companies that I would see at events and things of that nature. But advocating for myself has meant, okay, making sure that I'm not growing too fast, that I don't have companies in my agency that are going to put pressure on me, and working with those who actually do want to work with me, who see the vision of my agency, and we all are aligned in how we want our customers to be treated.
All right. Thank you, Patience. a very unique perspective and a very, I was going to say, a very strong one. Thank you. Thank you, Patience. We're down to 14 minutes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to skip one of our questions because we definitely want to make sure that we have time for Q&A. So my final question to the ladies today is, what's the one piece of advice you wish someone had given you earlier in your career about owning your space, advocating for yourself, and who you want to pass it on to at this time? And Patience, let's go.
Yeah, I'll get started. One of the things that I wish someone had told me in the beginning was, don't try too hard. I think in the beginning, I was trying way too hard for people to notice me. I was trying way too hard for people to accept me. I was trying too hard for people to clap for me. And sometimes time would tell in itself. Like, don't try. Like, I wish I can go back and tell myself, like, patience, relax. Like, don't try to overdo it. Don't try to seek people's validation. Just relax yourself. It's going to come later on, right? So if you're on this call today and you're waiting for people to support you, you know, you get hurt when people don't support you, you get hurt when people don't clap for you, forget them, right? Just be patient. Time will tell. They will come around, right? Don't try too hard.
Absolutely. All your hard work will show itself. Exactly.
Yes. Yep.
Tawana?
Uh, I got a list, of course, but I'm gonna take my. I feel like this is the top one because I've said it to college students. You are responsible. I'm talking like your mom. You are responsible for your career and your development, not your employer, not your boss, not your friends, not your spouse. You are responsible. If you want to do something you've never had, you got to do something you've never done. If you want to learn something you don't know, you have to do it. Don't wait for your employer. Don't wait for your spouse. Don't wait for anybody to do something that you want to do. You're responsible for you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you, Tawana. And Anne, bring us home.
All right, no pressure, right? So I really do feel like it starts with establishing your own identity and who you want to be. I don't think you can walk into any space, any career without establishing that piece first. So I wish I would have done that earlier in my career. And I also think this too, kind of going back to what Tawana said, like you own it, right? And so for me, I think one of the key things is a lot of times we build our networks and we look for mentors when things aren't going well. And I wish I would have been a lot more consistent in that journey along the way. Because it is so key to have someone that you can bounce stuff off of to help you shape yourself and your leadership identity early in your career so you can be firm in that space. And then the other part of it is constantly be educating yourself. A lot of us are in the insurance, finance, banking industry. So then what is going on outside of your building, right? Do you understand the market trends? Where are things going? Even for you in your role, how is that role growing and shifting? Where are you trying to go? So I think as much as you can early in your career, establish that routine where you're constantly educating yourself, constantly staying on top of the market trends. That way, when you walk into a room or a meeting, you know way more than they ever expect or anticipate you to know. And you're almost fearless going into a lot of situations, or you have that high level of confidence.
All righty. Thank you so much, Anne. Thank you. Again, we are open for Q&A at this time. I don't see any questions in the chat just yet. So what I'm going to do, there was one question that we didn't get to. I think this is an interesting one for all of us. And it's what's one phrase, mindset, or reminder that you use before walking into a high stakes meeting or presentation? And I'm going to start there if you guys don't mind. There's two things I always tell myself. I look in the mirror and I tell myself I am a phenomenal woman that could do it all. And then the other one is simple. Girl, you got this. Girl, you got this. How about you, Anne? What is it? What do you say to yourself to motivate yourself or to build that confidence before you're, headed into a stressful type situation?
So I love this question because I always have a soundtrack in my head or a song. So, and I think everyone should have their own hype song and be their own hype man. So for me, I love Formation by Beyonce because she's just super confident in that song. It speaks to cultural pride. It really speaks to standing in your identity. So I feel like that's just an affirmation of my identity and my hard work. And then I also love Good Morning Gorgeous by Mary J. Blige because it talks about inner work. And I feel like that's where we need to start to have like the strength to go out here and tackle like these leadership opportunities and to continue to grow in our career. So for me, it's the soundtracks that you play in your head.
And okay, how about Patience?
Yeah, for me, it's the same as you, girl. You got this. Like, you can do this. Yeah, literally every day when I'm having those rough weeks, those rough days, I just tell myself, like, you got this. Like, you can do this. You got this. And that's really what keeps me going. And I have conversations with myself. You got this because of X, Y, and Z. You got this because of X, Y, and Z. But that's my word that I use every day. You got this, Patience. You got this, girl.
We
Yeah.
do have a few questions. I just didn't know where they were. So if you guys don't, I am going to jump to the questions. We have one from Janae Green. I found that I'm very aware of the room. I can tell when others want to be heard or when the energy shifts. How do you balance being intentional about making others comfortable while still confidently owning your own space as a leader? And Tawana, why don't we start with you there?
Um, that is a great question. Again, being true to yourself, being who you are, and listening to what they say and responding accordingly. Being prepared. I just, thinking about what the ladies talked about today and what we all talked about. Being prepared, listening, and responding accordingly. And most of all, being who you are. You can never go wrong when you are who you are.
Totally agree. Thank you, Tawana. We have another question from Rhonda. Rhonda has asked, how much should I adapt myself to fit in within a group, share common interest, and how do I navigate that without losing myself? And Anne, why don't we have you tackle that one?
That's a really, really good question. I think one of the things you want to think about is like, what do you want to share? What do you feel like you need to share? What do you feel like is relevant, right? So there are lines that you will probably draw to just from a professional standpoint. I think one of the things is we don't have to feel like we have to conform, right? So you share certain aspects, but you also stay true to yourself. And I think all of us would agree with that. Stay true to yourself, because if you feel like you're playing a part, that's exhausting. You're masking every single day and you're trying to be something or try to fit into a corner or a space that's not the space for you if you have to do that. I just feel like you have to truly be true to yourself, share what you feel like is important, but don't overshare if you don't feel comfortable doing it. You shouldn't be forced to do that. And if you do feel forced, then maybe that's not the space for you.
Thank you, Anne. Thank you. Another question, how do we find a mentor? I'm a new underwriter. No one in my group looks like me. I struggle to communicate with my new manager. Prior to this promotion, I was always exceeding. Now I'm being told I am not meeting. I have tried to find a mentor. I went to my manager, HR, NAAIA, and colleagues. No luck. How do I find a mentor?
Yeah, I mean, we have the biggest platform, LinkedIn. Listen, I feel like sometimes people underuse LinkedIn. And sometimes we feel like we have to find a mentor within our company, right? You don't have to. Find someone that's outside of your company. Find someone who works for another company. Find somebody that's in another state, right? For me, when I started my agency, I would literally go on Google and research the nearest agency around me, and I'll pick up the phone and call them and ask the leader if they can meet with me, or if I can pick their brains, or if I can ask if they can give me 15 minutes, right? So don't feel like, and most of the mentors that I found were either in Texas, because at the time, when I started my agency journey, I mean, there's probably like 3 or 4 Black agency owners in Massachusetts. So I knew that Massachusetts was not the pool for me to find Black agency owners, but Texas, Georgia, New York, Jersey, right? So I would literally call these people and ask them questions. And some of them ended up being my mentor. And sometimes maybe your mentor may not be in your field, right? They may be outside of your field and they might give you advice that would lead you to where you need to be led to. But don't be afraid to utilize resources that you have within your state or LinkedIn. Most of you pay for LinkedIn, but you don't utilize that resource. So yes, definitely look around on LinkedIn. Listen, slide into people's DMs, pick up the phone and call people and tell them and ask them out to coffee. Don't let them ask you. You are the one who need the mentor. A mentor does not need you. You need them. So you have to go looking for them. Yeah.
Exactly.
So
And there is one question in here that's specific for Anne. So Anne, and it might probably be our last question because we're running out of time. But Anne, how do you read the room via Zoom?
Oh, you can read the room via Zoom because you can pay attention to how passionate people are about bits and pieces. You can pay attention to who's speaking up when. If you're on camera, pay attention to their facial expressions. And then this is another tip. If you're going into a meeting via Zoom, if you know the people before the meeting, you already can pick up on some of their habits. So just don't wait till the meeting, right, to get to know who the participants or who you're having a conversation with. You can definitely read the room via Zoom.
Thank you. Thank you. And this is one, and I'm gonna try to fit one more in here because this is a very interesting question. I've experienced moments in women-only spaces where the energy can feel more competitive than collaborative. How do you navigate that dynamic while still showing up confidently and setting a positive tone? And Tawana, why don't we let you take that one for us?
You know, we women of color are sometimes our own worst enemies. And we just have to rise above it, right? I think when you just walk into that, it's about commanding that room again, even when you're with women of color. When you walk into that room, seek people out, walk up to conversations. I'm one of those people, I make people talk to me, even when they don't want to. They don't know me. I walk up to, hi, I'm Tawana, how you doing? You just have to be bold, speak boldly, and put a smile on your face and walk up to someone and introduce yourself. That's the best way to break the tension. Again, remember, we have a resting bee face, so they may not even be mad or have tension. Their face just looks the way it looks. So walk up to them with a smile and introduce yourself, and that'll go a long way. And I also just want to say, for the people who are looking for mentors, please call me. If I can't do it, I'll find someone that can. I hate when I hear someone saying they can't find a mentor. There are 326 participants on this call right now. That is 326 opportunity, 25 for you to find a mentor. Please, I'll help you in any way I can.
And Tawana's LinkedIn information was included in the chat. So anyone that wants to make direct contact with Tawana, please do so. The information is there.
Oh, they're blowing me up.
Exactly. Okay, that's perfect. Perfect. Well, 2 minutes to go, and I'm afraid to jump into anything new. But what I do want to do is I want to turn it over. I think that we had some final words that we wanted to share by Ashley before we actually conclude today.
Yes, Sonya, thank you so much. Excellent moderation on such a powerful conversation where we centered Black women through the course of this hour. And I've seen in the chat that folks are so sad that it seems to go so fast. But if you connect via LinkedIn to these wonderful powerhouse ladies, I'm sure they can help you out continuously, as they have recommended that you reach out. So
Thank you for watching this flashback episode of NAAIA. We appreciate your time and hope you found the insights valuable. Stay tuned for more enriching content. Until next time, thank you for being a part of the NAAIA community.